As we move through this week, I must bring your attention to a matter of some urgency for those of us with tomato plants still fruiting in the garden. The weather forecast, as provided by the Met Office, indicates a significant change is upon us. We are expecting a noticeable drop in temperatures across the entire United Kingdom, accompanied by a rather large band of heavy rain. This shift from the milder weather we've enjoyed marks a critical point in the gardening year. For our beloved tomato plants, which thrive in warmth and sunshine, this impending cold and wet spell poses a considerable threat to the harvest we have all worked so hard to cultivate throughout the summer months. This is not a time for panic, but it is certainly a time for action. The joy of growing your own food is a wonderful thing, but it also comes with the responsibility of protecting your crops from the whims of nature. With today being Thursday, the 11th of September, we have a small window of opportunity before the weekend arrives to take some simple preventative measures. The forecast suggests that overnight temperatures will fall, and this is the primary concern. Your tomato plants, laden with fruit that is perhaps still green and ripening, are vulnerable. We must act now to ensure that all our efforts do not go to waste at this final hurdle. For many new gardeners, this might be the first time you are facing the end-of-season challenge with your tomatoes. It can feel a little daunting to see the weather turn against the plants you have nurtured from tiny seedlings. However, please be reassured that protecting your crop is straightforward and does not require a great deal of specialized equipment. The key is understanding why the cold is a problem and what simple steps you can take to safeguard your potential harvest. The advice I will share is practical and has been used by gardeners for generations to extend the joy of homegrown tomatoes well into the autumn season. The forecast is quite clear wet and windy conditions are on the way, with temperatures dipping into a range that is decidedly unfriendly to tomatoes. A forecast for earlier this week predicted a minimum temperature of just 11 degrees Celsius, which is already on the cusp of what these plants can tolerate. Some gardeners have even noted predictions of a 4-degree drop with a risk of frost, which would be disastrous. This is why I am urging you to set aside some time over the next day or two. Let us prepare our plants for the cold and ensure we can enjoy the literal fruits of our labor. So what exactly is the problem with colder weather for our tomato plants? These are, after all, plants that originate from warmer climates. They require a consistent level of warmth to not only grow, but also to properly ripen their fruit. The ideal temperature range for this process is comfortably above 15 degrees Celsius. When overnight temperatures regularly fall below about 12 degrees, the plant's biological processes begin to slow down dramatically. The production of the vital compounds that turn a tomato from a hard green globe into a soft, juicy, and flavorful red fruit is significantly hampered. The cold essentially puts the brakes on ripening. The damage, however, can be more severe than just a halt in ripening. A sudden cold snap, or even worse, a light frost, can cause physical damage to the plant and its fruit. The water inside the cells of the leaves and the tomatoes themselves can freeze, forming ice crystals. These crystals expand and rupture the cell walls, leading to irreversible damage. You might see this as blackened leaves, mushy stems, or soft discolored patches appearing on the fruit. Once this cellular damage occurs, the affected parts of the plant will not recover, and the fruit will begin to rot rather than ripen, making it completely inedible. Furthermore, the combination of cold temperatures and the heavy rain that has been forecast creates another layer of problems. Persistently wet conditions increase the risk of fungal diseases, most notably blight. Tomato blight thrives in damp, cool weather and can spread rapidly, turning an entire crop into a blackened, rotting mess in a matter of days. A plant that is already stressed by the cold is far more susceptible to these kinds of infections. The heavy rain can saturate the soil, potentially waterlogging the roots if your plants are in containers, further stressing the plant and making it vulnerable to both cold and disease. Therefore, the threat is twofold. Firstly, the cold itself will stop your remaining green tomatoes from ripening on the vine, leaving you with a harvest that never reaches its full potential. Secondly, the combination of cold and wet weather creates a high risk of permanent damage to the plants and fruit, potentially destroying the crop entirely. This is why it is so important to intervene before the worst of the weather arrives this weekend. We need to move the plants or the fruit out of this hostile environment and into a place where they can finish their journey safely. The most effective and straightforward solution to protect your plants is to bring them indoors. If your tomato plants are growing in pots or grow bags, this is a relatively simple task. You can move them into a greenhouse, a conservatory, a porch, or even a well-lit shed before the weekend. The goal is to provide them with shelter from the rain and, most importantly, from the dipping overnight temperatures. Even an unheated shed will offer a few degrees of protection, which can make all the difference between survival and ruin. This simple act of moving them under cover is the best defense against the coming cold. For those with plants growing directly in the ground, uprooting them is not practical. In this case, the focus shifts from saving the plant to saving the fruit. You should arm yourself with a pair of secateurs and a basket and begin to harvest your tomatoes. One excellent strategy is to pick about 50 to 60% of the green tomatoes that have reached their full size. These can be brought indoors to ripen. Leave the smaller, less developed fruits on the plant, as they are unlikely to ripen anyway. By picking the mature green ones, you give them the best chance of turning red away from the harsh weather. Once you have your green tomatoes indoors, you need to provide the right conditions for them to ripen. A common and effective method is to place them in a cardboard box or a paper bag alongside a ripe banana or an apple. These ripe fruits release ethylene gas, a natural plant hormone that actively encourages the ripening process. Do not seal the container completely, as some air circulation is needed. Place the box in a warm, dark place, such as a kitchen cupboard or an airing cupboard. Check on them every couple of days, removing the ones that have turned red and are ready to eat. Another wonderful technique, particularly for larger, indeterminate plants, is to uproot the entire plant. Carefully dig it up, shake off the excess soil from the roots, and then hang the whole plant upside down in a sheltered spot like a garage or shed. The nutrients and moisture remaining in the stem will continue to travel down into the fruit, allowing the tomatoes to continue ripening slowly on the truss. Some experts even suggest using a small tube heater in the shed to keep the ambient temperature safely above 10 degrees Celsius, creating a perfect environment for this process. It can be quite a sight, but it is remarkably effective. After you have brought your bounty of green tomatoes indoors, a little patience is required. The ripening process can take anywhere from a few days to a couple of weeks, depending on how mature the fruit was when you picked it and the warmth of its new environment. It is a truly rewarding moment when you see those green globes begin to blush with orange and then deepen into a rich, vibrant red. This effort ensures you will be enjoying the sweet taste of your own homegrown tomatoes in salads and sandwiches long after the outdoor growing season has officially ended. Taking action now truly pays dividends later. Of course, it is inevitable that some of your green tomatoes may stubbornly refuse to ripen, no matter how many bananas you place beside them. But please, do not see this as a failure or a waste. This is simply an opportunity to explore a different side of the culinary world. Green tomatoes are an ingredient in their own right and are the star of one of the great autumnal preserves, green tomato chutney. There are countless recipes available, and the process of chopping and simmering the fruits with vinegar, sugar and spices will fill your kitchen with the most wonderful, comforting aromas. A few jars of homemade chutney make for a perfect gift too. This end-of-season rush is a natural part of the rhythm of gardening in the UK. It teaches us to be observant, to respond to the changing weather, and to be resourceful with what nature provides. Whether you are a seasoned gardener or this is your very first year growing tomatoes, these steps will help you secure your harvest. Do not be discouraged by the approaching cold. Instead, view it as the final signal to gather in your hard-earned produce and prepare for the next phase. The satisfaction of eating a tomato you have saved from the cold is immense and makes every bit of effort worthwhile. So before this weekend, take a walk out to your tomato patch. Assess your plants, check the forecast, and make a plan. Whether you are moving pots, picking fruit, or hanging entire vines upside down, you're taking part in a time-honored tradition of gardeners seeing their crop through to the very end. By taking these simple actions now, you are not just saving your tomatoes, you are ensuring that the taste of summer lingers on your plate just a little bit longer, even as autumn settles in around us. Enjoy the harvest.